Hello, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to make this cool little snap purse. It's out of just 2 fat quarters, so that's 2 pieces of fabric that measure 18 by 21 inches, and some binding. So the purse itself has a front pocket, back pocket, inside pocket, and an adjustable strap. Stay tuned, it's going to be some fun. Greetings, hello, and welcome. This is Loaf and Leaf Lifestyle, and today we will be making a small purse from 2 fat quarters. I've got 2 fat quarters here, a roll of double fold bias tape, corners, thread, if I can remember the name, maybe some rivets if we get there. And mainly the whole point here is to make this out of as few ingredients as possible, right? So I also have some medium weight interfacing that I will be cutting that is not in this shot. But for right now, I'll get started opening up the fat quarters, ironing it out, and figuring out a pattern. See you in a sec. All right, and as I unpackage this, the whole idea here is that I'm going to use just these squares to make a pattern. Okay, here we go. All right, there's one down, and now we will go ahead and iron the other one. Okay, great. So there's the second one. So now we have both fat quarters ironed out. I also went ahead and drew out on some graph paper a diagram that shows where I want to put all my cuts. I'm going to make a purse with a small front panel, a back panel that folds over the top and then folds down with some pockets and a center strip. There's the lining, and here is my list of cuts. I will also add all of this information to the post. Here we go. A fun little time lapse of all the cuts that I will also have a link to a picture that shows you all these cuts. These voiceovers are fun because I'm going to go ahead and point out all my mistakes as I make them. So here we have the front panel, which was good. And the front panel, this bottom left corner is just an extra piece. It's a magic trick. Ta-da! So here, this shows you, we're going to come in on the first mistake here. And this is kind of like active sewing, I think. I'm actively changing what I'm doing while I'm doing it. So the purse handle, I originally had it 3 inch, and then I changed it to 2.5 inch. And so that made it so that this front piece is not 13 inches. I ended up cutting a little bit more off for it to be. Ta-da! Okay, now it looks like I have all of my cuts that I need. I went ahead and cut my interfacing 7 inch by 2.5 inch for my half pocket, 7 inch by 3.75 inch for my pocket liner, 7 by 6.25 for the front interfacing, and 7 inch by 12.5 for the back and top, and then 20.5 inch by 2.5 inch for that center stripe. So I have everything ready. I did add a few things here. So I found this roll of interfacing that I have, so I'm going to use that on my handles here. I think I'm going to need about 43.5 inches. And then I also found the pieces to do a handle that is adjustable. So I'm going to go ahead and make an adjustable purse handle on this one because I found those pieces. If you don't have pieces like this, that is the D-ring, the hook, and the adjuster, what you could do is just attach the handle totally, but that will make it so it's not adjustable. So let's get started putting everything together. Okay, I also decided to go ahead and round off the corners here. So what I'm gonna do is take this interfacing apart, and I just want a smaller rounding of corners. So I'm gonna use this sized circle. It looks like a 3-inch circle, and I can tell you just a second here. The rounding goes out to 1.5 inches on either side here. So right here where it goes around, that is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to draw that on this one. And I'll also draw it on the interfacing. We should have roughly a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch of easement here. And I will take care of cutting all these to match. Okay, these corners work pretty well. If you don't have circles like this, you can also use like the bottom of a glass or a bowl, like a small side dish bowl or something like that. Want to point out here that that top of the front panel is flat. I think I pointed out finally later, but I did cut that flat. Okay, so I've got all the corners cut into a rounded edge. The reason for this is that this interfacing is not fusible. It is just interfacing. So the medium weight interfacing will be actually easier for us to fuse in by doing an outside binding. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna attach the pockets first to both the outside and the inside, and then I'm going to put the outside and the inside together, and I will sew all of the pieces together, and then I will sew a liner around the outside of the purse, and you're about to see that. So here we go. All right, with the pockets, I like to kind of match them together. So that was the back one. Fold it backwards in half. I like to pin the interfacing also. And you leave a little gap in the middle not to sew with these. So that is now the center stripe. We measure from the inside going outwards in order to make sure that all of the pieces are really lined up well. And then pin it all together and we should be ready to go. Alrighty, so I have everything pinned and ready to sew my first sewing, but what I want to do now is make sure that I get my handles ready. Like I said before, I went ahead and I found a D-ring and an adjustable handle closer here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these into an adjustable purse handle, which is a little more fun. What I'm going to need in order to do that is for the D-ring side, here I'll go ahead and take that out. But for the D-ring side of things, I need just a little bit of material so that it can hold on to the purse. So on the D-ring side we'll do that. And then on the other side, I'm going to have this little clip where it clips together and the adjuster. So the D-ring side, I'm only going to cut 6 inches of fabric off of this, and I'll put that together for that. And the rest of this, I'm going to sew into one really long strap. So here that comes too. Okay, and the other pocket, the time lapses are much faster than the other. But as you can see, you leave a space in the middle when you sew these pockets. So you can flip them back the other way. Okay, so now that I've gotten the two outside pockets sewn on the inside, I'm going to flip them around and I will run a little sewing line here, and then I will place them to be sewn on the front panel and the back panel. So here we go. Yeah, so flipping pockets around is actually incredibly satisfying. but I suggest having a little rounded tool of sorts that you can poke in there to get the corners to come out. Once you have them flipped around, just knowing where you want to put them first, but you actually need to iron them so that they're sitting better. And keeping myself honest, I said I was going to sew a line into the bottom of the pockets, and I never did, but how they're attached works. So here what I do is I fold the front panel in half, I fold the pocket in half, I line up center, and then I measure 2 inches from the top. And that's where that little pocket goes. Here at the back panel, it's 2 inches from the bottom, the same process. Okay, so here it is sewing the center stripe together. It's oddly satisfying to sew. And so I'm not sewing it all the way to the edge. I'm actually going in by like 1.5 inches. And then here sewing the pockets onto the front of the purse. Once I sew the pockets, I will also transition into, are you ready? Sewing handles. Yep, sewing the straps together for the handle. Now that I have the handle sewn together, I take it, oh, I need to cut off my ends here. And then to reinforce the handles, what I like to do is use this interfacing that comes in the roll, right? So that's the that interfacing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fold my 2 sides flat like that, iron it flat, and then I'm going to come in with this and iron it on top to secure it. I'm going to fold these around this way. I'm going to sew them to catch the interfacing, and then I'm going to pull them back through for a cylinder strap. And I think that's going to be a little bit thicker. It'll work a little bit better with these D-rings because this D-ring is a lot bigger than there. Okay, and one more thing before I pin this is that I have this yarn here. What I'm going to do is tie the yarn to a safety pin, and then once I get this sewn, I can pull the yarn through, and it makes it easy to pull it back right side out. So here we go. Okay, and full transparency here, the yarn with the safety pin trick is not a good solution. I did end up struggling quite a bit to pull it back through the right way with that way. So I'm probably going to be Googling other ideas next time I do this. But here's sewing it all together. Also, this ended up being a lot thinner than the hardware that I used. So you probably, if you're using hardware, you want to use probably just 1 inch, maybe like 3/4 inch to 1 inch hardware. And here I am struggling very much with the purse straps, trying to turn them the right side around. The one smaller one went a lot easier, but it was quite a fight even with that yarn. So the yarn idea, not the best, but here we go. Okay, now that we have these flipped around, before moving on, we're gonna sew just a little border on each side, and then we'll move on to the rings. Okay, so here it is. You just sew it in less than 1/4 inch, and it is pretty quick. You just get both sides, and the idea here is that you're reinforcing the purse straps. I've got both of the sides of the handle flipped around now. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to sew this here to kind of grab on there. And then I'm going to take the adjustable piece of the handle, okay, and I'm going to just go ahead and attach it to one side. And here, what I will do is I need enough space to sew comfortably under the sewing machine, and I need to fold it under. So I'm going to sew this like that. And then after I sew it, I will put this piece on and feed it through, and we will come back. Oh, and I'll cut off those little strands, and I will show you the next step. Okay, so here when you attach the adjuster, all you're doing is putting it to one side of the strap, and then after you sew it into place, you will feed it back through. There's the D-ring. And then when I sew the adjuster, I do two lines of sewing, one closer and one a little further away. And that's just to reinforce it. Same with the D-ring. And so then you just cut everything. See there, you put the hook on, fed it back through the adjuster, and there's the strap. Okay, so now we have the center strip, the front panel with the pocket, the back panel with the pocket, right? And a handle, a strap, I mean, with hardware that's a little too big, but since I found it in my overstock stuff, and this is a purse for my soon-to-be 10-year-old, we're gonna be okay with that. But, so there's our adjustable handle. The next step is going to be making this inside pocket for the back. Okay, so I was matching up everything that needs to be sewn and put together, and my pockets, and I realized that I never cut these inside lining pieces with the circles on the corners. This is going to make it easier when we get to the point of attaching this binding. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I will continue to sewing. All right, so here with these circular corners, another funny little error. I accidentally, on the front piece, I made the quarters on the wrong side. So the corners are on one side. Okay, and also I may have forgotten to mention, but on the front panel, we are leaving the top edge solid. It's just this bottom part that's getting cut into the circle corner. So here we go with sewing. All right, so again with sewing a pocket, you fold it in half the wrong way and sew it so that you leave an opening in the center. And then I cut the corners closely. I cut the sides a little thinner too, and I iron it open. That way when you flip it right side in, it's a little bit easier. But again, flipping pockets is kind of fun. So then you take the piece you're sewing it to, you find half on that piece, half on the pocket. This is measured at 3 inches up from the bottom. So 3 inches up, I attach with needles or pins, and then go into sewing. Here I'm less than 1/4 of an inch in on sewing. All right, so project's almost complete. Now we have a inside pocket to go on the back part of the liner. This should be a little bit higher up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the handles. What I'm going to do is kind of an inside fold like this. Oop. Catch that piece, sorry. An inside fold like this, inside fold like this, put in the strap, right? Sew around it. Okay, attaching the strap here, if I were to do this again, or the next time I do this, I'm actually gonna wait until after I attach the front and back together before I do this part. That would just be as simple as leaving these ends undone completely, and it's just to make it a little more adjustable. But here you can see I pretty much sew everything twice to just kind of reinforce it. All right, and now that I have the handles secured on both sides, and they're adjustable and they can connect together and all that greatness, I'm going to find center on everything and then pin everything together. As this goes around these rounded corners, I'm going to cut it closely so that it can turn, and everything should come together and look like a purse momentarily. Okay, so here, fold it in half. We're going to cut a triangle out to find center. And then after everything has center found, you start kind of stacking it. Because I'm going to sew it with the edge on the outside, I have it pinned with the edge of the sewing on the outside. Here we cut the corners in order to help it to go around the outside easier, better, without the fabric gathering. And then do the same around the other side. So on this, we go from the center out. Okay, and just as a reminder, I'm sewing this on purpose with the seam on the outside because I'm going to come and put this border on it at the end. So I'll go ahead and get that side sewed and the other side pinned. I'm going to leave this flap undone for now. It will get taken care of at the very end when I do this piece, and I'm also very likely going to attach a rivet, and so that will be a part of the flap. Okay, so this is probably the beginning of the worst cinematography ever. The camera position is awful for this entire piece. But the main thing is when you're sewing it like this, you need to make sure not to get the other side in your sewing. You have to be clear that it's not overlapping. And then here, I wonder if you can see when I catch my mistake. My center stripe is actually measured for a square edge on my corners, so it's a little bit too long. I'll explain more in a sec. Okay, so I meant to do this side first, and I did this side first, and so that led to the strap being uneven here. So I'm undoing the strap, and I'm going to reattach it, and I'm gonna sew my end here again, and I'm gonna fix this side. And you can hear my kid playing in the background, but that's what's happening now. Okay, so there was admittedly a few minutes of what do I do now before I decided. With that error with the center stripe, I'm actually just going to fold it over. This purse is for my 9-year-old, so if I was making it for another purpose, I'd probably undo the seam altogether on the end of that center stripe and make it shorter. But here you can see I just undo it from the back and basically fold it over. And then once I fold it over, I repin everything. And once everything is nice and pinned and secure, we can go ahead and take it to the sewing machine. And then here, when I sew it, I again have to make sure that the underside stays clear, or else you can end up accidentally sewing your purse all together, right? And making sure that the liner is fully attached. And then what I did here was I folded the strap back through, and then I just sewed it to secure it so that the strap is still sticking out the entire time. All right, so now I have the basic shape of the purse put together. So the inside, everything is nice and secure in there. I have the strap, oops, that is adjustable. And so, oops, a doodle, turned it around, there we go. So the basic shape is here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to place this so that you see the purse stays solid, open, and this closes, and I think I want to put a rivet right here, right? So it'll be about right there. And then I'm going to put all of this hardware through so that it has a closing. And then after I get all that hardware, I'm going to come along here and open up this is actually quilt binding, but it's really good for doing borders on things like this. So I'm going to open it all the way up. And when I open it all the way up, I just got to kind of decide which side's the inside and the outside. So I'm going to consider this the inside. So I'm going to match this so that this is my seam. And so that this is my seam, and I'm gonna put that there and then sew all along the inside, and then I will turn it over and do it on this side so you see it has like piping in the end. That's the idea here. And I'll take it across the top and then go around and begin and end probably over here somewhere. So that is the next step to this. And then once I get all of that done, this purse itself will be finished, but I do have an extra little bit of material from the fat quarter. And so with this material, I've been kind of looking at it. I did cut a piece of mid-weight fabric to go in the middle. And so what I'm going to do with this material is probably use a little bit of leftover binding and a 9-inch zipper that I also was able to find. And I'm going to make a little purse closer coin purse thing to go with the purse. So that's probably the next video after this one, because this is already getting pretty long. So stay tuned. Okay, so as you see here, I find the center, I measure, it's 2 inches up on the flap in order to place the rivet, and then that was 1.5 inches down on the front, and then on the flap. So again, make sure you have center and mark where the rivet goes, put a little bitty snip, and then you line up all of your pieces. On the front piece, the rivet does not go through the back. It just goes through that very front, not with the liner. And then on the back, or on the fold over piece, the rivet goes through all of it. Okay, and so here I'm attaching the double bias binding. What I'm doing is attaching it to the one side. You see I cut it where the corners are at so that it can go around. With this, when you sew it, you very much is the same idea as sewing the purse together itself. You got to be really careful not to catch anything. But with this, you can also see I left a little bit of it undone in the beginning. There's probably like 2 or 3 inches of it just hanging over. And so that's because in order to have an exact correct amount, what you do is you attach all of it up as close as you can get together, and then you cut it off like right here at the very end, and here you sew it together so that it's all one piece before you even finish pinning it. And so here I'm finishing pinning it after sewing it into one piece, and then I sewed it all on there nicely. This next part, I am folding it so that it is contained with these binder clips. So I sewed it all up there, and then the binder clips are really way better than sewing needles to hold everything in place. If you have sewing clips, then those would also be preferable. But what you do here is you fold it in half and then half again, and then you bend it over to the other side of the fabric and you match it to the other side of where it should be. And then here you can see it was just awful to film all of this, but I finally got a better camera position. And so now I'm just sewing all of that bias binding onto the bag, and it looks like cute little piping. So I'm really happy with how all of this went on there. But binder clips, yeah, they work miracles. Okay, and then now on the other side again, attaching it all to the front, you've got to leave some of it overhanging so that it's not pinned, so that you can sew it all into one piece at the end. All of your corners, you go ahead and you cut those so that you can keep it all one nice line. Up at this top corner, to make it flat, instead of cutting little pieces, I cut out triangles and then I fold it over in a corner fold. What that essentially is you sew it up and off the fabric. I think next time I'll try to record that. But here I am sewing it all into one piece of fabric. Again, that is really preferable to having one piece. And then you pin it and then go back to the sewing machine. And again, my horrible camera angles. So the underside of it so that you are really kind of like hiding your hem here. And then after you get that piece all fully sewed on with the hitting my camera, I think at one point the camera just slid a little bit. So there's that. And then again, we turn it over, fold it in half, and then half again, and fold it into place, holding it with the binder clips once again. It's one of those power through moments where if you just get through this last piece of it, you'll be all done with the bag. So the piping is a little hard with all the folding, but I guarantee it's worth it. It makes this bag look so beautiful. And so here we go. The binder clips again make it a little bit of an easier time. Another attempt at a better camera angle. And it looks like we're about finished. Okay, so here we are. This beautiful purse fully sewn together. The outside looks just lovely. The rivet came out better than I expected it to. This is again for my 10-year-old, so I'm not too worried about all the little silly mistakes I made. But I am proud to say that I was able to make a purse from 2 fat quarters. So this was just 2 fat quarters, a little mid-weight fusible fabric, and a border, and some adjustable strap pieces that I had. And from all of that, oh, and a rivet. From all of that, we were able to make these cute little purse, and it closes with the rivet, right? And then it has, oops, sorry about all those little pieces. It has a pocket on the inside, it has a pocket on the front, and another pocket on the back. So that was fun. If you can think of a better way to make a purse from 2 fat quarters, why don't you try? I have one other idea that I'll be glad to share with you next time after I make the little coin purse from my overstock fabric. Until then, happy crafting, and I will see you later. Thanks for joining me for this tutorial. I hope you had a fun time working on this little project for the purse. My approach to crafting is that of an artist, not an engineer. So I like to start with materials on hand and then make creative things like this purse. I have ideas for many more of these DIY tutorials. So if you like, just like and subscribe to the video. And I will be coming out soon with the rest of the material from this being made into a coin purse. So check back later and have a good week.